Welcome to the Tarrant County Medical Minute podcast.
Hi, my name is Dr. Omar Salat. I'm the host of the Tarrant County Medical Minute through the Tarrant County Medical Society. Today, I'm joined by a bunch of wonderful TCOM medical students. The city of Fort Worth has two great medical schools. We did do a series with a TCU med student, Mary Conley, who's done a lot of work with Tarrant County Medical Society. She's fantastic, but now it's time to talk to our TCOMers. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down the line here, introduce yourself, where you're from, where you went to undergrad, and what year in medical school you're in. We'll start with you, John.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm John. I'm from Carrollton, Texas. I went to undergrad at UT Dallas for neuroscience, and I'm a third-year TCOMer right now.
I'm Cammie. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and then I did undergrad at BYU in Utah, and also a third year at TCOM.
Hi, I'm Quincy. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a fourth year at TCOM, and I went to Notre Dame for undergrad.
I'm Austin Driscoll. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I went to Texas A&M for my bachelor's and master's degree in biomedical science, and I'm a third year at TCOM.
Yep, and my name is Josh Reed. I'm a third year student at TCOM. Also went to BYU from Colorado specifically. Also did neuroscience as well. I didn't know you did neuroscience.
Yeah.
That's cool. But.
Okay, so medical schools are all different around the country in terms of when you get out into rotations, when you're in the classroom, if there even is a classroom anymore, all that sort of stuff. So can one of you kind of touch, maybe Quincy's the senior one here, where are you, your first year, second year, third year, and fourth year? How does the TCOM curriculum have you?
Yeah, so the first and second year, all students are going to be in DFW, in the classroom mostly, but it is kind of optional to show up to some of the activities, which is really nice. They have some things recorded, some required in-person activities, so you still get to meet your peers and work together and all of that. For third year, there's a couple different sites. So there's 5, I believe, remote sites that people right now are distributed into in a lottery system. But we've actually been advocating to change that, so now people will know if they're going to be remote or in DFW for third year before they sign up to come. And then fourth year, it's really choose your own adventure. There's one required rotation, which is emergency medicine, and for the rest, you just get to build your own schedule.
Okay, so first 2 years basically in the classroom, third and fourth years in the clinic, rotating and whatnot. How many elective rotations do you get your third year and your fourth year?
Your third year, you have 2. Your fourth year is all except one, which I can't remember how many.
Okay, so ER is the mandatory.
Yes.
And then you're kind of setting up rotations to go chase down the specialty you want, go see a residency program, and whatnot. Okay, so you guys were first years at some point. You came to Tarrant County Medical Society as a great thing where they welcome the first years in. They have burgers down here. A lot of us physicians come, meet and mingle, talk with y'all. So that's been a couple years for y'all. And in a couple months, we'll be having a whole new class of first years coming and meeting with them. So I kind of wanted to take you guys backwards a little bit, okay? So now that you've started your rotations and you've finished your first year, you've finished your second year, you've taken step 1, what are things that when you look back on that may be some advice you might want to give to a first year, second year, if you could go back, John, and look at yourself, is there anything you would maybe do differently?
I feel like, for me at least, I think I took it too seriously in the beginning, and I feel like I prioritized school a lot more than my life, and I think that definitely took a toll on school itself too.
Okay.
And I think as I worked myself through the first year, I realized I need to take time to myself and prioritize my friends or just my hobbies or just my just any of my interests outside of school itself. And I think that in itself will lend towards the school aspect. And I think that's something I would have done differently going into med school. I mean, of course, you have to take like med school's serious and you have to be on top of your game, but there's a time to decompress too, and you have to realize that you need to decompress to perform well, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to build upon that as well. I think the nice part about medical school nowadays is, especially after COVID, there's been a very large transition to like online options and like lectures being pre-recorded, and so you can really use that to your advantage. I mean, your schedule's pretty wide open about when you watch those lectures, when you're studying, and when you're doing different things. And so self-care needs to be an built part of that schedule that you create, whether that's going out and disc golfing. There's some great disc golf places here in DFW, normal golfing, mountain biking, just getting outside, doing stuff you like, finding yourself a good group of friends who have similar interests. I mean, those were all things that I was doing during year 1 and 2 that I really enjoyed. A little bit more difficult with year 3 with the set schedule, and so I definitely missed that, but I'm really glad that I took advantage of that during year 1 while I had the time. I mean, there was a point where I was going disc golfing 2-3 times a week just to get out, get active, and when you come back, you're able to engage a lot better with your coursework and your questions and your lectures, because you're not just staring at a screen all day, because that's kind of what it ends up for a lot of people.
It's dead time sometimes, right? Like you're in the library for long periods of time thinking you're studying, or wherever, you know, at home or whatnot, but you're really not doing something. So get away from it, go clear your mind, go exercise, do whatever you need to do, and then get back to it. What about you guys? Anything?
No, I mean, my biggest thing was about the same as John. I was thinking that it was going to be, I would have to study all the time, 24/7, and I was lucky that I had a roommate who was really good at self-care. And so I would see her go out on a bike ride or go out on a run. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to take care of myself. And so I was able to lean on her example, and that carried me for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things that somebody gave me at the beginning of medical school was a phrase, and it was compare and despair. Do not compare yourself to other people. There are a million different ways to study, and if I studied exactly how Cami studies, I would probably fail. So it's important to trust yourself and to be willing to explore and try different strategies. At the end of the day, know that what you need is going to be different from what your roommate needs or your best friend needs.
I mean, I'm a broken record, so it's going to be a lot of what they said as well. But I think there's a lot of honesty and truth to it, is that if you're consistent in what you're doing, and if you're doing just what's necessary for that day, then, and you do that every single day, then you're going to have a lot more time to yourself that you can say, like, okay, I allocate this amount of time to study, or I'm always going to study between these hours. So then everything outside of that time is mine. So you're able to have some flexibility with yourself, or some days you're like, I'm not feeling well, I need to go to the doctor. Allow yourself a self-care day. And if you're being consistent with it, then you're not too set far behind than what you would have been if you put everything off to the last minute and then you get sick. So I think, to me, a big thing was like, just be consistent with it, but also just have fun. Like life's too short to not have fun.
Yeah. So this path of becoming a doctor is difficult. You know, I mean, I tell this to everybody, you've got to be resilient. You know, everybody that gets admitted to med school is intelligent, smart enough to get through. It's about resilience. We all have had, I've had it too, I'm sure you guys have had it too, some really, really low moments. You know, there were times where I was like, what am I doing? I'm not going to make it through. Have you guys experienced that, and, you know, willing to talk about it, or any, you know, inspiration for some MS1s and MS2s here?
I've absolutely had those moments. Okay. I've had a lot of them. But I think that really it's important not to just suffer in silence. Mm-hmm. If you are really stressed out, you can't figure out how to study, don't just sit there and try to figure it out on your own. People have done this before. Reach out and ask for help. I feel like I wasted so much of my time trying to figure things out on my own that I didn't need to figure out. I easily could have been like, hey, can you send me that flashcard deck? Instead of spending hours scrolling through a Facebook page trying to find it. Mm-hmm. But just reach out, lean on your support system. Everybody has these moments. And I think that another thing that really helped is life happens. It keeps happening. All sorts of wonderful and sometimes terrible things will happen while you're in medical school. But when those happen, what has really made a huge difference for me is at first I was like, I don't have time to deal with this. I'm just going to push through. And I ended up so tired and it was not sustainable. So instead, I was like, okay, I just got this awful news. It's really difficult. I'm going to take the evening. I'm just going to take the evening and feel it. And then tomorrow, I'm going to try again. And that made a huge difference for me.
Yeah.
I think that last part of tomorrow trying again is probably the biggest part of med school. I feel like it's really good to give yourself grace during times of failure or just times of like the lowest points of your life, because I think if you're able to do that, I think you're able to just conquer any like challenge there is that comes to med school, because if you're able to learn from your mistakes, you're going to be able to adapt and become even more resilient in the end. So.
It's such a humbling ride, you know, like everybody around you is a high achiever. Everybody works hard, you know, and you all look how far you've gotten, you know, but I mean, you've just got to don't get too low with the lows and don't get too high with the highs. Just keep riding, you know, the wave. Speaking of the highs, though, let's get a little positive here. Were there any moments, you know, in your first 2 years where you're like, okay, I can hang? Because we all go in with some anxiety, like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do this? When did you realize, okay, I've got this, I can do it? I remember for me, it was, you know, one of my first anatomy tests, ironically on the brachial plexus. You know, I think that's why I went into PM&R. I liked it. But, you know, and I handled that test pretty well, and I'm just like, okay, I got this. Was there any moments for y'all that you were like, okay, I'm going to make it through it? I'm meant to be here?
I think for me, it was during MSK, so it was during our musculoskeletal unit, and at that point in time, it's pretty early in your career, but you just don't know how to really study. I was just trying to figure out how to study, so I bombed that first exam, and that was my worst exam throughout med school. But I picked myself up. I learned a better way to study during after that, and that next exam I aced it, and I think that was probably the best time during my the beginning of my career, because I feel like it showed me I'm able to hang, and I'm able to be that person.
Yeah.
And, you know. So, yeah.
You know, there's a professionalism to being a medical student. You know, some people, I think it's very advantageous that have done their masters right into that year, maybe at UNT. You kind of learn right there, hey, this is how I have to be and whatnot. Other people, when they're coming in, don't know that yet, and then you have to learn, wait, I studied the wrong way. I didn't study the right stuff. You know, what's high yield, what's not. There's so much information. What do I need to know moving forward? So anybody else have any moments of hey, I've arrived, or I can handle this?
Well, for me, it was honestly, I think October of first year, so TCOM has this called TCOM Bowl. And so it was a whole process of trying to get everyone, the first years and the second years, they play against each other, guys versus guys, girls versus girls, first versus second year. And it's a whole weekend event or Saturday event it's just flag football, and it's just fun. And we went for weeks on end of just practicing and having fun. And I think once I started I found that core group of guys that I could just hang out with, and it was okay, there's more to medicine. I think that was just a big thing, is finding a good support group that I was okay, I can do this. I have people that I was able to hear their struggles, they were able to hear my struggles. I was able to sing my praises to them, they were able to sing their praises to me. Just being able to find a strong group of friends that you can relate to, that you can rely upon, that you can study together and come up with the absolute weirdest mnemonics to learn the most random things. That's just the core thing of just once we started getting that down and finding that good group of people, that to me that was okay, yeah, it's the next 3 years, it's just smooth sailing.
Yeah, so as you guys know, I take on med students, and I've trained people, you know, from various medical schools all over the country, and your school is phenomenal at prepping you for the hospital setting, the office setting, clinic setting. I mean, it's just amazing. When my daughter was applying, you know, she interviewed at multiple schools in Texas, and she's going to TCOM, as you guys know, and I was like, hey, Summer, I promise you, TCOM will prepare you as good as anybody. And speaking of that, I love the camaraderie. You guys have a huge class, and I went to the first flag football game this year, and oh my God, it was wild, and just the energy, and the MS1s typically lose to the MS2s, if I'm not mistaken, and then you'll get your revenge the next year. But just seeing that bond, it helps you get through these challenging times, and then you form these relationships that are going to carry you forever. I hang out with my med school friends still to this day. They're so close to me because we went through some crazy stress together, and then you realize, hey, these guys they understand what you're going through and all that.
I want to sound off on that real quick too.
Yeah.
I think that medical school, though it may not seem so, is very much a team sport.
Yeah.
You got to have your team, and they got to have your back. And I had a period of time where I was going through some really hard stuff with family situation, and I had to miss 2 weeks of school, end up having to make those up later. But really it was that team and just group of people that were here that really got me through it. Inside and outside of school, they were outstanding and overly supportive, and I'm so grateful for that was really that moment for me, knowing that this is where I'm supposed to be. These people got my back, and we can make it through anything.
Yeah. Okay, so after your first and second year, well, somebody speak about boards. Being in an osteopathic school, COMLEX step, what's pass fail, what's not. Somebody talk about that. You're the elder statesman.
Okay, so after your second year, osteopathic medical students have to take COMLEX in order to become licensed. A lot of osteopathic medical students will also take the STEP exams, which is what the allopathic students take, because some specialties like to have that so they can do a direct comparison. STEP and COMLEX level 1 are pass-fail now, which is amazing. Huge gift, still very stressful. I can't imagine doing it with a score. It's another big learning curve. And then after your third year, you will take COMLEX level 2 and maybe STEP 2. And those are for a score.
Right. And then you're applying for residency around there, so they're looking at your scores. So moving backwards a little bit, so we've got third years, we've got fourth years. You've in the process of applying to residency. You guys haven't started that yet. I had this talk. I've had this talk with a bunch of med students that I think it's very difficult for y'all because it is pass fail. Your school's pass fail. Most medical schools are pass fail. Boards are pass fail. How do you separate yourself from the next student? Right? So now that you're third and fourth years, you can look backwards a little bit on your first and second year. Is there something, we talked about this a little bit, but is there something you could would do differently? Jump on a research project. How would you chase that down at TCOM? What are some good avenues? Shadow physicians to try to figure out what you want to do. Early on, some of you have shadowed me in your first and second years. Is there any advice you would have for first and second years on that?
I think that the shadowing thing is a major point there because, as you know, I'm still deciding between two specialties right now.
Well, there's one, but
but I think shadowing is a big thing because during your first 2 years, I think you have a good amount of time. I know it doesn't seem like it, while you're in that state of mind of our test is coming up in 2 weeks and in a week or so, and I need to catch up with all my DSAs and all these videos and things like that. But in hindsight, of course hindsight is 2020, but if you're able to and you're interested in certain fields, I think shadowing is a great way to just get exposed. Whether it's 1 or 2 days, I think it's a good way to just have a conversation with an attending, see what their mind is and what their day-to-day life is, just seeing the life behind whatever
because
specialty
you
is.
have 2 electives,
exactly.
So you don't want to blow it on
exactly.
something, and within the first week you hate it, and you're like, oh my gosh, But I agree with you. I think shadowing is important to try to find out what you want to do. It's hard,
Yeah.
I mean, any other advice?
Yeah, I think shadowing is huge. I also think any experience you can find out of a clinic is really valuable. Any kind of volunteering, any kind of...
Huge for your CV.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, you're trying to differentiate yourself.
For sure.
Reads, pass, fail.
Well, and when you go and you volunteer and you put yourself in this environment where you can meet people in different specialties and just see what their life is like, see if you vibe with them, and then you know the people going down the road. Like, I volunteered a ton my first and second year, and I met a whole bunch of people that I'm so glad that I know now. You know, when I have questions, I reach out to them, and it's helped me build a network that I can rely on as I'm trying to navigate these important questions for the rest of my career.
I think your school also does a great job. It's so big. Yeah. There's so many students. There's so many graduates or, elder statesmen, MS3s, MS4s, when you're in MS1 too. There are a lot of clubs, joining clubs, getting involved, right? They'll have those volunteer activities, correct?
Yeah, they're really easy to find on campus.
Yeah, but you got to go do it. You're not forced to do it.
No.
And so you got to do it. And so there might be a Saturday opportunity, but right, you have the anxiety, oh my God, I'm going to fall behind.
Exactly.
But it helps.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of touch on that as well. So I think for me, I came into medical school thinking I wanted to do one specialty. And so the best thing I did was try to get involved in that specialty. And very quickly I realized I don't want to do this anymore. It was just something that wasn't for me. It was a totally different experience than I thought it was going to be. So as a first year, I was like, okay, well, back to the basics. What do I like? Let me get involved in clubs in areas that I like. And TCOM, thankfully, the membership fees to get into some of the clubs, all you're doing is paying for a t-shirt, and the rest get free food the rest of the year. So find things that you like, get involved with that with clubs. Find volunteer opportunities that you like and get involved with those opportunities. Research, I personally am not the biggest advocate of trying to go out and find a research, because a lot of times research will find you with TCOM. They're so good about after your first year, we have all these opportunities. Let me help you with that. So if you're already overwhelmed with a bunch of other things, don't scare yourself with that. But find things that you do really, really like, because if you're passionate about something, that's what's going to stand out whenever you get to the interviews and your applications and your personal statement. Your light's going to shine through that. So luckily for me, I found the things that I was interested. I kind of revolved myself around that, and I found a specialty that worked for everything I did like.
Yeah, and then you can get some leadership positions in some of these clubs too, which helps build your CV and whatnot. I believe you had some leadership at the school. What'd you do?
Oh gosh. Okay, I did.
What did you not do?
Okay, so I was the president of my class. I was the president of the Medical Student Government Association, and then also a couple of clubs. I started one club called the Organization for Student Civic Engagement. I've been a little bit hyper involved, some people say.
That's okay.
But I love everything that I did.
Yeah.
And so it always felt like a break from studying.
Yeah.
It always felt like a reminder of, okay, this is why I have to go and learn about kidneys, even though I don't want to learn about kidneys. It's because of this end goal.
Yeah.
And so I think another thing, what you were saying, how you found something that you ended up not liking, I think it's so important to reflect on those experiences too, and just instead of just being like, oh, I hated that, say, okay, well, what didn't I like about it? Did I not like I don't know, I had a job before and I was like, I'm miserable, I don't like this. They said, listen to your body. What don't you like about it? I was like, okay, well, I'm sitting at a computer. I love talking, so that's not going to work for me. And I'm telling people what they're doing wrong as quality control. It's like, I want to tell people how great and wonderful they are. So then I said, okay, now when I go to my next job, I need to find these characteristics.
Right. Yeah. Some students will come to me and I'm helping them with their CVs, and they're like, Dr. Slott, I'm applying to PM&R, but I was the, vice president of the cardiology club. I'm like, that's fine. You were in MS1, MS2. We don't expect you to know what you want to do then. It doesn't have to be PM&R related. It just shows, it shows good on you that you're a leader, you're involved, you're more than just a medical student. You've got to start getting these things to help separate you, have something to talk about during interviews, and all that sort of stuff as well. So, yeah. So research, you mentioned this, Austin. This is what I get a lot of questions, and honestly, I don't know the good answer. So there are opportunities at the school to jump on research projects.
Yeah, so I came into medical school with a little bit of research from undergraduate, so I felt confident with that. But there were some of my classmates that said, they're like, we don't have any research, period. So TCOM, they have a lot of summer research projects where I think there's one called STAR. They have the pediatric research program. You can just talk to any professor that teaches any of the courses, because some of them have relationships with the hospital, some of them have clinics. If they find a random case report, you can always jump on and ask them things. In your first 2 years, or in your first year, you have anatomy, but you're on campus your first 2 years, so you have access to the anatomy lab. You just reach out to the anatomy department and say, hey, do y'all have anything that y'all found that is like interesting, any variants, anything random? Can we do case reports based on something that we like, and we want to see if there's anything that's consistent or different than the population, because you'll have several donors that you have a case study, you have a population right there that you can kind of use as a sample size. So there are opportunities. A lot of times TCOM will help you find it, but if you want something like more specific, then it's probably
and we have a lot of residencies in Fort Worth, which is pretty cool. Like Fort Worth's become like this little academic town. Every hospital has major residency programs, multiple residency programs. So they're always looking for somebody to help do that initial work on a research project that they would expect from an MS1, MS2, or even an MS3. Cool. Okay, so now let's fast forward just a bit here before we run out of time. So you've gone through your first year, you've gone through your second year. Okay, now you guys have started rotations, and I remember when I started my first rotation, I was exhausted. Because I'm used to going at my own pace, studying at my own pace. You don't have to dress up to study. You're not on your feet all day. And now you're going to clinic, and then you're expected to read afterwards. And I think that's another thing a lot of students, that's where you can differentiate, who's got it, who doesn't, who puts in the work when they go home. Obviously, if you rotate with me, I'm going to expect you to do it. But sometimes you're not going to be told to read, and you just need to read. But how different was it, classroom to clinic? I found it tough, the transition. Although I liked it.
Yeah. So my transition, my first rotation was an elective rotation for child neuro. So I think my experience from that change was actually a lot chiller for me because there's no board, or not board, but shelf at the end of my rotation, and I just felt like my preceptor at the time was actually pretty chill too. So I think going from elective into my other rotations was a big shock for me, because then I didn't know how to write notes, I didn't know how to present very well, I didn't know how to just study after like a full days of work. And I think that was a big transition for me, because I think during the first 2 years you're just you're on your own schedule. Basically you're making your own like study schedule. Like I literally had so much time, I would travel during like my first 2 years. So you can make your own schedule, but for this one it's just such a strict schedule, and you just got to work around that schedule. And it's a big adjustment period.
It's hard to get away on a weekend somewhere, because you may work till Friday till 6. You don't know that month. You don't know that day when you're getting out.
Yeah, I started on surgery, and I was just kind of thrown into the fire. I was waking up at 4 a.m. I had to have rounded on two patients and have notes ready by 7 morning meeting. And it was difficult, but man, it was so much better than year 1 and 2. I'll tell you that. Just getting away from those books and getting into the hospital, getting into the clinic, interacting with patients, so much better. And everybody was running around like chickens with their heads cut off. You got the brand new interns that don't know what they're doing, and so you're asking them questions. The blind leading the blind. It was crazy. It was pretty wild, but man, it was. I wouldn't trade it for year 1 or 2. Getting away from that book, getting away from the screen is really nice. So you can look forward to that. If you like talking with people. If you don't, maybe radiology or something will be more your game.
I think another big thing was that in that transition, you just start losing that support system that you have, because everyone's just on their own schedules, and you're in different sites, so there's just less time to hang out with different friends that you made during your first 2 years. So it's like you said, it's just a little bit lonelier.
It's lonelier. You'll go on a rotation. You might be paired with nobody. It might just be you and the attending, right? And that's kind of a lonely day, in all honesty. Or there could be a student in your class that you don't really know that well, or you all weren't in the same friend group. But it's funny though, when I get people that are in the same friend group on the same rotation, you can tell they're just chat. They just know everything, and the vibe is great that way. But yeah, rotations have their pros and their cons. I mean, I did like my first 2 years because of the camaraderie, but like Josh says, I hated just the pressure of the test, But, third and fourth year is just a totally different challenge. And then you got the stress of matching and, figuring out what you want to do with your life and all that sort of stuff. So it never ends in medical school. But then once you get to residency, things, you're doing what you want to do. Life gets a lot better and, more focused on what you want to practice. All right. So, I mean, I think this has been a great discussion, and I'm hoping we'll push this out to the first and second years a little bit, just so they can hear that, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel here, for all that hard work and studying. So anybody have any final comments, or we're good?
Well, I guess, like you said, there's always a new challenge. And it's exciting and it's scary and there's new pressures and everything. But all along the journey, I just kept reminding myself, I'm meeting my milestones. Mm-hmm. This is appropriate for where I'm at. And if I wasn't in this situation, feeling these stressors, I would probably be a lot more stressed.
There you go.
That's something that was helpful for me to remind myself.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you guys for taking time out of your day, coming and recording this. You can catch this podcast, other podcasts, on our social media channels. We're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We're on X, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Okay, there you go. I got it all thanks to Shivalika cueing me in the background. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.